Welcome back to the Power the Future Energy Hour. Here's Rick Whitbeck.
Anytime that I get a chance to speak with members of Alaska's congressional delegation, it's a treat for me and an honor for me. Tonight, the rest of the show, we're going to be joined by our own Senator Dan Sullivan. Welcome back to the Energy Hour, Senator. Thanks again for giving us some time tonight.
Hey, Rick. Great to be on the show. Thanks for the great work that you're doing for Alaska, for the country, particularly your incredible focus on energy for our nation, for our state. It's such a great service and always great to be on your show.
Well, thank you. You and Senator Murkowski, Congresswoman Peltola, doing what you guys can do in the face of some pretty radical opposition there from the Biden administration. I know we talked about, what's been going on the last 2 years. From your seat there in the U.S. Senate, what can be done to offset the next 2 years of what I think is just going to be increased rhetoric and increased damage as the president looks to launch his reelection campaign?
Well, it's such a great question and such an important question. And, I think we have to educate the American people on what has actually happened, because when you tell them the facts, the average American, whether they're a Democrat or Republican, independent, they scratch their head saying, you have to be kidding me. So what am I talking about? We're just rounding the corner on the second anniversary of the Biden administration.
Yep.
And as you know, Rick, because you guys have done such a great job of highlighting it, since day one, these guys have sought to undermine the biggest comparative advantage we have at home and around the world, which is American energy. And they have undertaken a policy that we know is true because we see it, unfortunately, in Alaska, but around the country. First, by shutting down or delaying the production of American energy. Mm-hmm. Second, by shutting down or delaying the development of American energy infrastructure. Keystone is just one of many examples. Third, and a lot of people, haven't seen this because it's a little bit nefarious, they have literally been going to the financial sector of the U.S. economy, the banks, Wall Street firms, saying, don't invest in the American energy sector. I kid you not.
Yeah.
They are doing it. And then when the predictable results happen, higher energy costs, people losing their jobs because they're kicked out of the energy sector, the Biden administration literally goes to the world's dictators, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and begs for more oil, Iran. So to me, the first thing we need to do is make sure Americans understand this because,
right,
as you know, Rick, we have the highest standards on the environment for energy production in the world. We have the best workers in the world. And what we need to do is unleash American energy for our own consumption. By the way, all of the above energy.
Right.
I'm talking
exactly.
Gas, renewables, everything. But they haven't done that, and it's really undermining our interests at home and abroad, and it's a huge problem.
Yeah, it's a national energy problem, a national security problem, a supply chain, usurpation of dominance problem. And it could all be solved because America has the energy opportunities to not only supply our nation, but much of the rest of the world if we so chose.
You're exactly right. And, the other thing that I always remind people of, if you care about the environment, you should want to produce energy from the jurisdictions that have the highest standards in the world. Right after the midterm elections, what did the Biden administration do? They go over to Venezuela,
right,
to work with the Maduro regime, which is a terrorist regime in Venezuela, to lift sanctions on Venezuela so they can export more oil to the United States. Venezuelan energy projects are estimated to be 18 times more polluting than the average American energy project. And it's just crazy, especially when we in Alaska have so many opportunities and the one that we've been working on nonstop is Willow.
I was just going to say, so that let's make that segue, right? Because one of the things that you, Congresswoman Peltola, Congressman Young before that, and certainly Senator Murkowski are banging the drum on every day with this administration is 160 to 180,000 barrels a day of opportunity that, by the way, shouldn't be having the problems it's having getting going, if not for the extreme radical positions from this administration.
100% correct. Matter of fact, and I mentioned this in a podcast I did, a video for our fellow Alaskans back home. We're not working on this daily. We're working on the Willow Project hourly.
Okay.
Just last night, texting the Deputy Secretary of Interior on the timeline. We were at the White House with senior White House officials in December 2 times, 100% focus on Willow, saying the same thing that you just said. This is in the National Petroleum Reserve of Alaska, set aside by Congress for oil and gas production. This has been in permitting, 15 to 20 years. It is totally shovel ready to go. And as you mentioned, not only max production, 180 to 200,000 barrels a day. Think about that.
Sure.
What that could do for Alaska, what that could do for America. And that's not pie in the sky. Those are the estimates that we know are accurate.
Mm-hmm.
$8 to $9 billion investment by ConocoPhillips in our state and in our communities. And here's the other thing, Rick. 2,500 jobs.
Yes.
Just to build it.
Yep.
I mean, this is such a win-win-win. It's also the lowest greenhouse gas emitting project of any major oil and gas development anywhere in the world with the highest standards. So this is something we are literally working on every single hour. The Biden administration has told us they're going to get the final EIS out by the end of this month. That's, a week from now. And there's likely to be litigation. We certainly hope others are going to join us. I'm working on an amicus brief, but as you know, there's a lot of stakeholders in the state, the North Slope Borough,
Yep.
the state of Alaska. We all got to come together and defend this project and get it off the ground. This is such a game changer strategically for our state and for our country, in my view, and we're on the cusp. But as you mentioned, it's taken way too long because of the foot dragging by this administration. And to be honest, attempts by many in the Biden administration who just want to kill it.
Yeah, that's the part that, when they come out and say, and give you guys the commitment that they're going to have a final EIS or supplemental EIS, environmental impact statement, out by the end of the month and a record of decision by the end of February. I just look and say the eco left is never going to let that go out without a fight. And I'm not ever going to say that the Biden administration would lie to Alaska and lie to you guys, but I will be very, very shocked if that comes out on time the way that it should come out, which is clean.
Well, look, here's the other thing about this, and you're exactly right. I've written the Senior Inspector General at the Department of Interior, highlighting how very senior officials in the Department of Interior, prior to joining the Biden administration, had jobs that were focused on shutting down Willow.
Yes.
Now they're in charge of approving Willow. Let me give you another one, and you should know, and our fellow Alaskans, I want them to know, our last meeting right before the holidays in the White House, led by John Podesta in the White House. John Podesta founded and ran this think tank called the Center for American Progress up until a couple months ago.
Yep.
It is the number one left-wing group that is opposing Willow. Any article that you read about Willow in any newspaper, this group always says, we're going to kill it. We're going to kill it a death by 1,000 cuts. Podesta founded and ran this organization until 2 months ago when he rejoined the Biden administration. I asked him in the meeting, how can I tell Alaskans that you're going to be a fair decision maker, right? I mean, this is crazy. You've been against it the whole time. He said he was going to be. I have my doubts, but we're going to continue to press him on this because it's great for our state. But to be honest, it's great for America and great for our national security.
Absolutely. I mean, Willow should be, like you said, approved before the ink was ever dry on the supplemental. Senator Sullivan, let's do this. Let's take a break. Come back. I want to talk about the Alaska LNG line and more with you when we come back on the other side of the commercials here. I'm with U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan, Alaska's shining star in the U.S. Senate. We'll be back with more with him right after these messages on the Power of the Future Energy Hour here on KVNT.
Welcome back to the Power of the Future Energy Hour. Here's Rick Whitbeck.
One last segment tonight here on the Energy Hour. My guest, the Honorable U.S. Senator from Alaska, Dan Sullivan. Senator, again, appreciate the time. When we went to break, we were talking about Willow and how it not only is a major piece of Alaska jobs, Alaska energy input for the U.S., but it's a matter of national security because it would lead us to further increased energy independence and energy dominance in the world.
Yeah, Rick, I was just on a delegation of senators. We took a trip to the Middle East. This was what's called the Abraham Accords countries. This was a big, historic, successful initiative by President Trump, normalizing relationships between some key Arab countries, Muslim countries like Morocco, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Israel. Really important. It was a really eye-opening trip. But the one thing, and we met with a lot of U.S. military forces that are in the region, but the one thing that continues to drive the power dynamics in that region is energy. Energy remains the coin of the realm of power in the Middle East. And when you are there and you realize that the President of the United States is actually undercutting our domestic ability to produce energy, you see directly how it undermines serious national security interests in that region. So it's, again, another issue that comes back to we need to be producing American energy by American workers with the highest standards that we have on the environment, more than any other country, better than any other country. It's a win-win-win. And my goodness, the Biden administration really needs to change direction on this because it'll benefit all of us.
Preach that, Senator Sullivan. I can't agree with you more. Another opportunity here in the state for, again, not only Alaskan jobs, but American energy production would be our LNG pipeline. I know last October you went to a U.S.-Japanese LNG summit with U.S. Ambassador to Japan, Rahm Emanuel, Governor Dunleavy, and others. Can you fill us in on where the Alaska, the AKLNG project sits from your viewpoint and what we need to do to get 230 some odd trillion cubic feet of natural gas off the slope and in the market?
Thanks for the question. And this is a topic, when I was the DNR commissioner under Governor Parnell, we had made some very significant progress. We settled the Point Thompson case. We started production of Point Thompson. Again, I think it was 1,200 jobs to build that, which was fantastic for our state. But then, as these things do, it kind of went sideways for a while. Right now, given what's happened in Ukraine, the brutal invasion of Ukraine by Russia, it has turned energy markets, global energy markets, on their head. And American allies and Americans need oil and they need natural gas. And all of a sudden, once again, the stars, in my view, are starting to align on this project. Obviously, it's a huge project. It would be a giant game changer.
Yes.
So we work very closely with Ambassador Emanuel. And look, I've been very critical of the Biden administration, but there are some officials who I think are doing a great job. Rahm Emanuel, believe it or not, former, I think, Clinton or Obama chief of staff, congressman, mayor of Chicago, he's done a great job promoting Alaska LNG. Now, part of that was during his confirmation process, I pressed him on it and said, hey, if you commit to me to helping Alaska LNG get off the ground and reject the idiocy of John Kerry and others in this administration, I will not only vote for you, I will help round up votes to get you confirmed.
Right. I remember that, and I remember the commitment, and he's following through.
He has totally followed through. So we had this summit, as you mentioned, senior Biden administration officials, the governor and his team, the top Japanese officials, the top Japanese buyers, all the producers, Exxon, Conoco, Hillcorp, Santos, which is a new player on the North Slope, as you know, they were all there. Huge investors, Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, and others. And it was an all-day summit. And I will tell you, Rick, we're not there yet, but I've been involved in this project for well over a decade, and I have never seen the alignment that's happening. Now, in Congress, Senator Murkowski and I in particular have been working for years to get all the permits done.
Yep.
This project has all the Department of Energy permits done. There's no West Coast project that has that. In the infrastructure bill last year, we got federal loan guarantees
Yes.
for this project. And, you know, every now and then I'll pat myself and my colleague, Senator Murkowski, on the back. We indexed it for inflation, which ended up being a really smart move. So right now, those federal loan guarantees are about $30 billion. This is the only project backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. And believe it or not, and this is, again, all compliment this administration where they merit it, their Department of Energy came out with their final EIS on this project recently. I couldn't have written a better EIS. It talked about how this is going to help our allies, it's going to help Alaskans. Because it's natural gas, it will help reduce emissions throughout the Indo-Pacific region. So this summit was a really important one. We are following up, working with AGDC, working with the governor. You know, sometimes we still have some reluctance with our producers on the slope. That's always a challenge. But like I said, I've been working on this project for a long time. The alignment of interests and stakeholders I've never seen come together. We got a lot more work to do, but we're back in the game right now.
And that's awesome.
I think it's really exciting. And look, the people we want to benefit more than anyone else, of course, exporting LNG to Japan, Korea, Taiwan will help our allies, and they'll help get them off Russian gas and oil, too, which everybody's trying to in the aftermath of Ukraine. But this could be the biggest game changer for our state.
Yes.
Think about the jobs, estimated 30 to 35,000 jobs to build this, and getting low-cost energy to communities throughout the state, having it, you know, for 50 to 100 years. That could change the trajectory of the future of our state in such a positive way. We're going to keep focused on it, Rick, but I'm glad you asked about it.
Yeah, certainly for the interior, for Fairbanks, for the communities along the path of the pipeline, for Valdez, you know, if you can bullet it over into South Central and it takes the pressure off of Cook Inlet and, you know, those gas fields, it's a project that needs to happen. And I'm very, very appreciative of the delegation working on that on our behalf, Senator. So thank you.
Look, like I said, this has been a team effort, and we do in this case have a really strong advocate. You may have even seen Rahm Emanuel wrote a big op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about Asia and Japan and had a whole paragraph on AK LNG. So We are highlighting it. He's pushing it. We got a lot more work to do, but again, the alignment's starting to happen, and my view is we got to really take advantage of this.
Certainly, geopolitically, it's a time. It's the right time. Market-wise, it's the right time. The federal loan guarantee was genius. That was genius, especially indexing it for inflation. We have about 60 seconds. Anything else listeners should know about happening in D.C., whether it's energy or anything else?
Well, look, the other thing that, we're very focused on as a state, but as a country, and it's related to energy, it's critical minerals. Right now, we recognize that critical minerals are so important for our national defense, for the renewable sector of our economy. And Rick, as you know, we are so reliant on China. We have to get off our reliance. And guess what? Guess which state in the union has more critical minerals than almost any other place? It's us. It's Alaska. It's another frustration with this administration. They've delayed the Ambler Road and the Ambler project. We're going to continue to fight on that. I put a hold on a number of Biden administration officials to leverage getting that project moving again. But we have a lot of potential in that regard, too, and we got to realize it.
Senator Dan Sullivan, our guest. Senator, thank you. Thank you for continuing to fight for America, continuing to fight for Alaska. You're a hero in a lot of people's eyes, including mine, and thank you again for the time tonight.
Thanks, Rick. Keep up the great work. Always wonderful to be on your show, and what you're doing is such an important service to Alaska and all America.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, guys, we're out of time. Have a great energy-filled week, everyone. We'll be back next week on the Energy Hour here on KVNT.